Gina. Today I'm going to show you how to make this little bracelet I'm calling Summertime Bling. Now, I have to apologize first of all for not being around for a while. I've had a couple of rough weeks, so I wasn't really beating or making any designs. I designed this one yesterday. Most of it, I designed the units. The clasping I did while I was on camera, so if it's a little hesitant, that's why. But this is what this looks like. Oops, I have it upside down. This is the clasping. I'll show you what it looks like on my wrist so that you can see how very pretty it is. And this is what it looks like on the wrist. That's the clasping. Let me back off a little. And that is what it looks like. It's really very pretty. And this is also pretty versatile. You don't have to use crystals. You can use anything 4mm round. So you could use all pearls, you could use all crystals, you could use drooks, you could use whatever you wanted. But so this is pretty versatile. You don't have to use 2 colors of 11-0s like I did either. And also, I wanted to mention, I got a new camera for Mother's Day from my son Levi, which, thank you, Levi, you're a sweetheart, and I know he won't be watching this, but I want to say it anyway. So, as I'm working through this, I'm kind of figuring out my new camera, and hopefully you'll bear with me, and I think it'll be okay. So, anyway, let's look and see what we need to make this bracelet. Okay, for this project, you're going to need 4mm round beads. Now, I am using a crystal and a pearl. This is a glass pearl, and this is a round Chinese crystal that is opal AB, and this is a cream-colored glass pearl. You can use all one color if you'd like. You do not have to use 2 colors. If you do not like, you can use all pearl or all crystal. You don't have to mix them. This is a forgiving design. You can use most anything you want. You could use a drook, you could use a gemstone, whatever you would like, as long as it's 4mm round. And you can mix colors, whatever, it doesn't matter. Then I'm going to use a shank button for my clasping. This little shank button that I found is about 1 inch in diameter, or well, 1 inch wide, I would say. It's a small button. It's a little shank button. I got it in my mom's collection of old buttons, so I don't know that you'll find one exactly like it, but anything comparable will work. You could also use a toggle clasp. I'm using this one because it matches my pearl pretty well, and I think it's going to be nice. Then you're going to need 2 colors of 11-0 seed beads. There again, you can use all one color. It doesn't matter. The colors I have chosen are silver and turquoise. They're both Toho. This one is a galvanized aluminum silver tone. This one is opaque turquoise AB. Then this 15-0, you will also need some 15-0s. I should say that first. This 15-0 is also the galvanized aluminum silver tone. So then you're going to need some thread, of course, and I'm using 10-pound nanofill. You can use 8-pound nanofill if you would like. You can also use 8 or 6-pound fire line. Then I'm going to be using a size 10 English beading needle, like so, and I'm going to put 2 wingspans of my thread onto my beading needle, and we'll get started. Okay, to start this project, I'm going to start with a 4mm round crystal, and then a silver 11-0, and then a 4mm round pearl, and a turquoise 11-0, another pearl, and another turquoise 11-0. So this is what I have on my needle. Get you a little closer so you can see. Then we're going to bring this down to the end of the thread. We're going to leave a tail on this one, leave it about a 12-inch tail, maybe a little bit longer, depending on how much thread you like to work with when you're sewing. I like at least 12 inches, if not more, when I'm trying to put on the end, even if it's too much. So now we are going to go back up through all of these beads that we put on. Hold on to the tail and pull your thread through, and pull these beads into a circle. And then we will tie the tail and the working thread into a knot. So I'm just going to do little overhand knot here and pull this down, make sure it goes down between my beads. That way I just ensure that I don't have a bunch of slippage while I'm working here. So now I am going to sew back through all of these beads. So here's my knot here. I'm just going to sew back through all of them to secure them. So as you always should on your first unit. Once I get back to where my knot is, I'm going to sew through the 11-0, the purl, the 11-0, the purl, and get over to my silver seed bead, because that's where I want to start my next step. So I'm just going to sew all the way around again until I get to the silver seed bead, and I'm going to exit. Now, like I said before, you can use all one color of seed beads. You can use all one color or one type of 4mm rounds too if you'd like. So it'll eliminate trying to keep your colors sorted so that your pattern of colors comes out correctly. Now I'm exiting this little 11-0 seed bead right here. I'm going to pick up 3 more of my silver 11-0s. And I'm going to go into the opposite side from which I'm exiting, and I'm going to pull these down into a small right angle weave unit. And then I'm just going to turn it over and sew back through them so that I secure them. I'm going to secure each and every step on this bracelet just to keep it to where it's really neat and it has some strength. So I'm going to secure all the way around, and I'm going 1 bead at a time to retain the shape of my unit. If you try to do more than 1 bead at a time, usually you just squish your beads up. So now I'm coming back into my connecting bead, so I've gone all the way around. Now I need to get over to this bead here so that I can make my next unit. So I'm going to go into this one here, and then go into the bead that I want to start my unit in. And just a minute, I'm sorry, I tangled my thread. My pliers on my desk here. Okay. So I'm going to go up into this one right here. So what we've got is our crystal towards us, and we're going to start our next unit. We want to make a unit exactly like this. Since we're coming out towards the pearls, out of the bead, that is, towards the pearls, we'll start with a pearl. So we'll pick up a pearl, then we'll pick up a turquoise seed bead and a pearl, and then a turquoise seed bead, and then a crystal. Now we don't need to pick up a silver seed bead because the seed bead we're coming out of will serve as that seed bead in our sequence of unit beads. So now we're going to go into the opposite side of the silver seed bead we're coming out of, and we're going to pull a unit down. So now we have an identical unit to the first one we made. I'm going to turn it over just to get better access to it, and I am going to sew back through all of the beads again. Now I'm coming out of my connecting bead. I'm going to turn this back over. I want the tail towards me. I'm going to work my bracelet this way. So I need to get into this center unit, this bead right here, in order to start my little loops that I'm going to make over my units. So I'm going to have to sew. So I'm coming out of this little seed bead right here. So I'm going to sew into this center 11-0. Every time we begin to make our loops, we are going to want to be exiting the center 11-0 in the little right angle weave units between the 2 larger units. If you do not sew over to that, then the flow of the bracelet will not work right as you're sewing through it, and you'll be struggling to get to where you need to be next. So now we're exiting this center unit, center bead in the center unit. We're going to pick up 7 turquoise seed beads. So I'm going to pick up my 7 seed beads onto my needle like so. Now I'm coming out here. I do not want to cross over my bead and go this way. I want to go in the direction of my thread. So I'm going to go over to this 11-0 here. I'm going to skip over the pearl, go into this 11-0 seed bead, right here, and pull this little loop down over my unit, and I'm going to straighten it out so it lays nicely. Now I'm going to turn it towards me just so I can get better access, and I'm going to pick up 3 15-0 seed beads onto my needle, like so. I'm going to skip over the first 11-0, the one that was in the original unit, and I'm going to go into the 7 I added. And I'm going to go into 4 beads and exit. So I have 4 beads. Then I'm going to push this down so that these 15 O's lay nicely over the little 11-0 we skipped over the top of. Now, we've only gone up through the 4 because we want to make a peak. Now we're going to go down through 3 and the 11-0 that we're connected to. So I'm going to come out of this little silver 11-0 right here. And we're going to make the loop on this side. So we're going to pick up 7 more 11-0 seed beads, like so. Now I'm coming out of this silver one. I'm going to go into the turquoise one over here, skip over the top of the pearl, and I'm going to arrange them so they lay nicely next to the other 7 that we put on the unit. Now here's where it can get a little tricky just tension wise. So you want to make sure your tension is good. You're going to pick up 3 15-0 seed beads, and then you're going to skip over the 11-0 that you're exiting from, go into 4 seed beads in your loop, and then pull. Hold on to the beads with your thumb just to ensure that they don't slide all over the place, because they will. You want to make sure after you have gone all the way through that these 15 O's are laying over the top of this little 11-0. Very nice and neat. You're exiting the 4th one, creating a peak in the loop that you've created. Then we're going to make a unit like this. So what we're going to do is we want our crystal to be towards the inside, just like it is on these on these 2 units. So we're going to pick up our crystal first, and then we will pick up a silver seed bead, and then we'll pick up a pearl, a turquoise seed bead, a pearl, and we do not need another turquoise seed bead because the one on the unit that we're coming out of is going to serve as that turquoise seed bead. So now we're coming out of this side, we're going to go into this side. So go into the side, opposite side from which you're exiting, and pull your unit down, like so. Now sew through the entire unit. So I'm coming out of that little turquoise seed bead. I'm now going to sew up into the crystal, and I'm just going to sew completely around this unit and tighten it and secure it. When you're doing this, make sure that you do not pull your little peak of beads out into strange positions, because you can very easily. So watch your tension, watch the organization of your beads, and keep everything nice and neat. As I say that, I pull my beads all out of whack. There we go. Because if you do not keep them nice and neat, you won't be able to change it later. At this point, you need to keep them neat. I'm going to go through this pearl, and then I'm going to go back through the bead that I started in. And now I need to get up to this silver seed bead to start my middle little right angle weave unit. So I'm going to go up through this crystal. Then I'm going to sew through the 11-0 seed bead here. And I'm going to then pick up 3 more silver 11-0 seed beads. I'm coming out of this side of the bead. I'm going to go into the opposite side of the bead and pull. Now I have a little unit in the middle, and I'm going to secure it by sewing through it. I'm all the way around to my connecting bead, but I need to get to the opposite bead in the unit to make my next unit of 4mm rounds. So I'm going to sew through this bead here, and then sew through this bead here. And this is where I will begin to make my unit. I'm sorry, I have another tangle. Sorry about that. And my next unit. Now this one's a little different because we're going to use this seed bead and this seed bead in the unit. So we don't have to pick up any seed beads for our first one. We just need to pick up the crystal. Since we want the crystal towards the inside of our bracelet, we're going to pick up the crystal. We're going to go from this 11-0 to the fourth 11-0, 1, 2, 3, 4, in the little loop we made of 11 O's, and pull these units like so. Then this will be our next turquoise bead, so we don't need to pick up another seed bead. We'll pick up a pearl, and then we'll pick up a turquoise seed bead. Then we'll pick up a pearl. But we don't need to pick up another seed bead because we're going to use this seed bead on the unit again for our next one. So this is what you should have. And then we're going to go into this silver seed bead, the crystal, and the seed bead that we're connecting to, just like so, and pull this unit down. So now you have an identical unit to this one. Now we're going to sew around it. I'm going to come up this pearl, seed bead and pearl, and here again, pull your tension nice, make sure that it all looks good, and then we have to sew into this middle unit to get to this bead to start our loops again, because we want to follow our thread path so that the thread doesn't show by crossing intersections that we didn't originally go through. We need to sew all the way through this unit to get back up to this bead here. So we're going to sew through this silver seed bead here. Then we're going to sew through this silver seed bead here. Then we're going to sew through this one here. And then we're going to come up through the center seed bead. And now we are in position to start our loops. Like I said, we always have to make our loops from this center bead, sew through, and then come back and do the other side, because otherwise it just doesn't work. I tried it, believe me, I know. So pick up 7 of your next color, so it would be my turquoise, 7 seed beads onto your needle, like so, and then skip over the pearl, go into this 11-0 here between the pearls, and pull your loop down. Then pick up, make sure that your loop is nice and neat, pick up 3 15-0 seed beads, and then skip over the bead that you're coming out of, go into 4 beads on the strand you just put on there, 4 11-0s right here. Hold on to the beads and pull that 15-0s, those 15-0s down over the little 11-0 that we're connecting to. Now sew down the next 3 11-0s and the silver bead you're connecting to here in the middle. Pull your thread through and pick up 7 more 11-0 seed beads. Seven onto the needle, skip over the pearl, go into the 11-0 between the pearls on the outside of the bracelet. Pull it down, pick up 3 15-0s, go around the bead that you're exiting from into 4 seed beads on the strand you just added, right there, and pull them down like so. Now we will make our unit. We'll go ahead and do one more full complete unit, and then we'll go to length. So we're going to pick up a crystal first, and then a silver seed bead 11-0, and then a pearl, and then a turquoise seed bead, and then a pearl. Because we're sharing this turquoise seed bead, we don't need to pick up another one. This is what we should have on our needle. We're coming out of this side of the turquoise bead. We're going to go into the opposite side, pull our beads into a unit, my thread keeps knotting on this one. I'm sorry, guys. Now I'm going to sew around the entire unit again to secure it. And here I am now coming out of the bead I originally connected to. I need to get up to the silver seed bead right above the crystal to make my unit of right angle weave that goes down the center of our bracelet. So we'll go up into that bead. We will pick up 3 more beads, 3 11-ohs, and we'll go into the opposite side from which we're exiting and pull the beads down like so. Then we'll sew through this entire unit. I'm in the connecting bead, so I need to sew over to this bead on this side. So I'm going to sew through this one on top, sew through this one here, and I will make my next unit. So I need to pick up a crystal first, and then I will go into the 4th bead, the one peeking up here, 1 2 3 4, go into this turquoise bead right here, and I will pull the bead down like so. Then I will pick up a pearl, and then a turquoise bead, and then a pearl. As we're using this bead and this bead in our unit, this is all we need to complete the unit. So we will come up into the silver seed bead and the crystal, and then the turquoise bead we're connecting to, and pull like so. Now we're going to sew back through this unit, I'm going to sew down into the silver seed bead here, and then I'm going to work my way around this center unit here. Now if you want to, you can sew all the way around this unit to secure it and then come back around, but I feel as if mine's pretty secure, so I'm going to work my way up to my center bead here so that I can start my loops. So I am in this bead, I'm coming out in this direction, so I need to sew into this one here. Let's get a little closer just to make sure on our last unit here you can see everything. So we're going to come through this bead here, then we're going to go through this bead here, get up into the top center bead here. Then we will start our loops. I'm going to pick up 7 seed beads onto my needle in the turquoise color, like so. I'm going to skip over the pearl, go into the 11-oh here between the pearls on the outside of the bracelet. Then I'm going to pick up 3 15-oh seed beads like this. I'm going to skip over the bead I'm exiting from, and I'm going to go up into 4 beads on my strand, 1 2 3 4, and then I will exit and pull these 15-ohs over the bead, the little 11-oh that I was connecting to right there. Now I'm going to sew down into these 3 beads here and into the center bead that I've started my loop in here, the silver bead. Then I will pick up 7 more beads of the turquoise color, like so. I'm going to go from this bead over to this one. turn it over just so it's closer to my right hand, and I'm going to pick up 3 15-ohs. I'm going to skip over the bead that I'm exiting from, go into 4 beads on my strand, and here I will begin my next set of units. So I'd pick up my crystal and make the units. If you need to rewind the film to remember how to do that, go, or not rewind, but back up a little, the video, not the film, then do that and just continue making these units until we have 14 rows of double units. So you'll just count each double unit as a row, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. I have made 14. Now, my bracelet should come out to be about a 7.5-inch bracelet. If you want a smaller bracelet, of course, you'll make less units. If you want a bigger bracelet, then you'll make more units. But for a medium-sized bracelet, you will need 14 rows of double units. Now, we're going to add the button part of the clasping here. Of course, you can add a toggle clasp if you'd rather. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick up, I've made my last unit, I've gone through my center and made my little peaks here on both sides. Now, instead of adding my units here, I'm going to pick up 3 of my turquoise 11-ohs. I'm coming out of this side of this bead here at the peak of one of my loops, and then I'm going to go into the opposite side, and I'm just going to make a little unit of right angle weave on the top here, and then I'm going to sew back through it to secure it. And I'm going to sew all the way around until I have gone all the way around the entire unit and then back up to the top bead, perhaps. There we go. I'll go up to this top bead here. I'm actually going to sew all the way back down until I get into the connecting bead. So I've just, in essence, gone all the way around this unit twice. Now I'm just going to go down into the 3 beads here. So I'm coming out of the unit at the bottom, or the bead at the bottom of the unit. I'm going to go into the 3 beads in the loop. Then I'm going to go into the center bead here. Then I will sew up these 3 beads and get into the 4th bead on the top and make another unit of right angle weave. So we're just going to go into all 4 of these beads here, exit the 4th bead, and make another unit of right angle weave. So I'll pick up 3 turquoise beads. I'm coming out of this side, I'll go into the opposite side. But all I want to do on this bracelet is tangle. I don't know what my deal is today, but then I'm going to sew all the way around it again. Go into my connecting bead. And then I will sew up to my side bead here. So what I'm going to do is come into the top bead here. Okay, so I am coming out of the top bead on my little right angle unit here. I'm going to pick up 3 11-oh seed beads, my button, drop it down, 3 more 11-oh seed beads, and then I'm going to go back into the top bead on the opposite unit of right angle weave across from the one we've started in. So all I've made is just a little arc through, like so. Now I'm going to sew back into my right angle weave unit here. So I've sewn through the side bead here, and I've sewn through the bottom bead here. I'm going to pick up 3 silver 11/0 seed beads, and then I am going to go into the center 11/0 here, right in the middle of that unit, and then we'll pick up 3 more, and we'll slide up into, so we're going to go over the top of these 3. We're going to slide up into the side unit of the right angle weave unit that we just added here. We're going to go into this bead right here. So right into this one, like so. And then we're going to sew back around this unit. So I've gone back into this 11/0 here. I'm going to go into the blue beads here underneath the silver ones we just added. Go back into the center here. Up into the blue beads here. Perhaps if I can get into them. There we go. Now I'm on the back side, so I'm going to flip this over because I need to go into this bead on the bottom of my right angle weave here, because I need to get back up into my unit. So now I'm coming out of this bead here. I can sew into this one on the side. I can sew into these through the button. Just make sure, just kind of move your button from side to side. Make sure you get through all of your beads, that you're not skipping any, because your thread will be on the outside of your bead if you do, and it'll bunch the beads underneath the button and they will not lay correctly. So go all the way through those and then back through the top button and the right angle weave on this side. And then sew around this unit of right angle weave here. So you've got your little unit right in the middle here. Go around those beads. So around the entire unit. Back into the one that the button clasping is hooked onto, and then you're going to want to grab a knot right here between the beads on the thread bridge, and then sew back down into your unit. I'm going to go back into these beads here, right here. Now I'm coming out of the silver seed bead in the middle right angle weave unit. I'm going to sew into this unit, and I'll grab a knot again right here on this thread bridge in the middle unit here. And then I'll sew into this bead here. I'm just sewing, following my thread path. I'm going to go into this purl here, and then I'm going to cut my thread off and burn it down. So I'm going to leave a little tail of thread, and I'm going to burn that down. I left a little too much. There we go. And that is what that'll look like. like this. Okay, now we have this side done. We're going to go over to where our tail is. And we'll put the needle on the tail thread. And we'll be back. Okay, so I have put my needle onto my tail thread. And now I'm coming out of this little turquoise bead at the very end here. If your tail is not coming out of that bead, which it should be, but if it isn't, just sew through your unit until it is coming out of the turquoise bead on top. And then we will pick up 3 11-0 seed beads. I'm going to use the turquoise color. And then I'm going to pick up a pearl, like so. And I'm going to drop this down. Then I'm going to pick up enough beads to go around my button. So I'm going to go off camera and I'm just going to pick up a bunch of these little turquoise 11-0s until I get enough to go around my button, and I will be back. Okay, so I have picked up 30 beads. Now I'm not sure if this is enough to go around my button or if it's too many. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold on to this pearl and my piece. I'm going to sew back down into the pearl, like so. I'm going to hold on to this rather tightly, and I'm going to bring my button around, and I'm going to see if this will fit over it without too much struggle or not being too loose either, and that fits about right. So I'm going to call that good. And then, now that I've come through my pearl here, I'm going to pick up 3 more 11-0 seed beads. And I'm going to go into this little side bead here. Now I'm going to sew around my unit so I can get back over and sew back through all of my beads. So actually an easier way to do this would be to pick up 3 15-0 seed beads. We're coming out of this bead here. We're going to go over the top of it and go into the 3 on the other side of it, like so. Going to pull this down. I've got to make sure our thread is nice and tight so that those 3 15-0s go over the top of that little bead nice and neat, like so. You have to play with it a little bit to make it happen. Go back up through your pearl here and then begin to sew through all of the beads that you put on in your loop here. So, oops, let me get in camera here, sorry about that. We're going to go all the way down here. So we've picked up 3 15-0s, we've gone over the top of the little 11-0 like we did in the rest of the bracelet. I'm going to make sure that everything's nice and neat here. And now I've gone back up through the 3 11-0s here, through the pearl, and back up through all the beads on my loop. Make sure you do not skip any of the beads. Keep sewing through all of them. And you can do this as many times as you feel like you need to secure it. And don't pull them too tightly or they'll bunch. So as you're doing it, and to work them into nice, neat order, and then come back through your pearl here. Come back through the 3 on the bottom here. Actually, there's 4, so go through all 4 of them. Pick up 3 15-0 seed beads. Skip over the top of the bead you're coming out of and go into the 3 here. Now, straighten that all out. I think I have enough thread. I'm going to go ahead and sew through my loop again and come back through this pearl, and then we will tie off. So go ahead and go back through and we'll be back. Okay, so I've sewn through my loop again, and now I'm going to come through these beads here. Right underneath, I've sewn through my loop, come through my pearl. I'm going to go back into these here, and then I'm going to go into the 11 seed bead between the pearl that we put the between our loop here and the pearl that we put the 15 O's over. I'm going to go through it again. And right underneath it, I'm going to grab a knot. So I'm getting very short on thread, so I'm going to grab a knot here. And then I will sew through a few beads with what little tiny bit of thread I have left here. So I'll sew through here and here. I'll go through this 11 here and this crystal here. Just use up the little bit of thread I have. Just sewing around this unit. Now I'm to the outside purl, so I'm going to cut my thread here. Burn it down. And that is what that looks like. Now, I will put this on and come back. Well, actually, let's give you a look at it. That's what it looks like. Kind of pretty. And
right
this
back.
is what it looks like on. I'll show you my clasping. It works very well. Stays on nice. Turned out cute. And I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. See you later.